I've had some concerns about the stove when the weather's been getting cold because I was feeling cold. It didn't seem really hot enough. The stove, as you can see, I've put a nice enamel kettle on the top, and you can see the nice healthy glow from down inside the stove. And I've had some concerns about the stove when the weather's been getting cold because I was feeling cold. It didn't seem really hot enough inside. So I'm going to put another light on for a moment. Oh, that's better. And at first I wondered if I had done something wrong, because when I went into the Coventry Basin a few weeks back, it was a slightly anxious journey because I knew that the moorings are fairly limited unless you can get into the basin, and on the way down I'd passed a boat coming out and they said they thought there might not be room, and I arrived just as it was getting dark, and I didn't appreciate just how small the brick bridge is that leads into the basin until I was too close. I suddenly realised that the stove chimney with the cowl on the top was going to hit it, so I had to put it frantic reverse, but it didn't work, and the cowl on the top of the chimney got buckled and pushed downwards by the roof. It nearly fitted under, but not quite. And by the time I pulled it out again, it was a very sorry looking cowl, and I wondered if that had affected the performance. So I got a new one from the folks at Lockgate Stoves. They delivered one to the marina the day I arrived, so I was able to walk over and collect it. So I put that on, and I still wasn't feeling that warm in here. And the fan, I fitted a heat fan further up, and though it's turning, it's not really stirring lots of air. I mean, there's heat coming off the stove and it's going upwards. But what was putting me off is that these reflex stoves have an adjuster, a regulator, which goes from 1 to 6, and the number of times people have told me, oh yes, I keep mine on 1 most of the time and sometimes 2, and it's really toasty warm in the boat, and I just wasn't getting that. Paul from Lockgate came and had a look at the stove for me and checked it out, checked the temperatures, and he made an adjustment to one of the 2 regulator jets, which are factory set, and I've started just using it, and I, to be honest, I think now the problem has been that I was listening too much to these other people, because I've now got it on 5. When I got up this morning it was -1 outside, and I put the stove up to 5, maybe a shade over, and the internal temperature was 15 degrees, which is a bit chilly. But over the next hour and a half or so, I noticed every time I walked past it was 16, then 17, then 18. When it got to 21, I thought, okay, that's warm enough, and I turned it down again, back to 4. Now it's going to be very cold tonight, so it's back up on 5, and I think maybe that's just what I need to do with it. I mean, I do hope so, because if that keeps us warm, that's great, because in every other way it's just so much easier, you know, fill up the fuel tank and light the stove, turn it on, and it just runs, and you just turn it up, turn it down, it carries on running. Every now and again you need to give it a bit of a clean, but it's very clean and easy to use compared to a solid fuel stove. So the kettle's come to the boil nicely there now. I've got my cafetiere here. The only thing with this nice red enamel kettle is it doesn't whistle, and the handle gets quite warm too. Right, I'll put that back down there and put my venerable old heat fan back on there. This one was on the boat when I bought it, and it's had a very hard life in my hands. It's been knocked off the old stove many times, so it's not very quiet anymore. Sometimes needs a little bit of a push. Mind you, it has been cooling down there. And yes, I had a problem with this stove when I couldn't seem to get it lit properly when it went out. And one time I tried several times, half a dozen times over a couple of days, just couldn't get it going. And so I called Lockgate. Well, there's the fan off now. And Olivia at Lockgate talked me through it over about an hour and a quarter on the phone how to check the fuel flow and also cleaning regulators and so on, which I tried. That grey box down there is the regulator, and on the top is the control knob, but at the bottom there is a plate which I had to remove, and the filter in there did look like it needed a bit of clean, which surprised me a bit. Anyway, I took it out. It's washable, so you wash it, make sure it's dry, and then you put it back. And I used the metal rod there, which slides in and out, to make sure that the fuel jet's clear. And I cleaned out the inside of the stove. There's lots of little 2mm diameter holes in rings around the bottom for the low flow jet, the high flow jet, and the intermediate flow. So I got very grubby doing all that, but at the end of it all, the flow was all right. There's no blockage anywhere, and then off it went. And as I said before, we had the adjustment inside the regulator box. There are two adjusters there which are factory set and shouldn't normally be adjusted, but Paul from Lockgate used a temperature thermometer, one of these I think point and shoot thermometers, to check the heat on the hot plate, and he said the low jet was fine, but the high jet wasn't bringing the hot plate up as hot as it should be, and so he tweaked the flow for that. And it does seem now that we've now got a nicely working stove. So and also, if I put the ordinary whistling kettle on there, it seems to boil at least as quickly as it does on the gas ring, so that's quite nice. So hopefully I'm now going to stay warm, because it's supposed to be -5 or 6 overnight, so I certainly won't be able to move the boat tomorrow. So who knows when I'm going to get that engine service done. But anyway, I have a stove, I can keep warm. Yes, isn't that right, Flan?